Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Wednesday, August 4th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 29 days. The game against Michigan in 115 days. Yes, we are in the 20s in the countdown to that first game. Today, also, fall camp is here. The Buckeyes will start the ramp up to the 2021 football season this morning at 7:30 a.m., bright and early. Mark Givler, Tony Gerdeman, and I will all be setting our alarms very early to be there, providing coverage from BuckeyeScoop.com. Yesterday, we had a chance to talk to the quarterbacks, as well as Ryan Day, position coach Corey Dennis. You can find a recap of those interviews on the Buckeye Weekly podcast we dropped last night. Today, we're looking forward to what we're going to see in practice later on today. Not much later on, but a little later on. My guest today is Buckeye Scoop reporter Tony Gerdeman. Tony, to me, the start of fall camp always feels like the official end of the offseason. There's not games yet, but it's like, all right, it's here. We made it. It's here.
And it moves incredibly fast. I don't know if it moves fast for fans, but it moves fast for us while we're covering it, because we can both look at our calendar and see there is no break coming. And the only break is, on the weekends when you're trying to catch up on everything you did during the week. And then before you know it, it's game week, and game week is even earlier this year. So it's all going to become, it's going to get here. It's so fast. And like you said, it is here.
Yeah, so that may have sounded like complaining. None of that was complaining. We're all very happy that college football is here, that we have regular access to interviews and practice and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh man, it has been, we really didn't get any kind of, consistent regular practice access last year. So it has been a couple of years since we've been in that building pretty consistently. So yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun this month, and we are going to get to watch at least part of practice today, and how much will depend on the benevolence of the good folks at the Sports Information Department and the coaching staff. But I'm really kind of interested to get some first impressions on where things stand with a bunch of different positions that, to sort of start the month. And then you can kind of later on see who's moving up or down in the running order. But, the first position, I really want to see who's going first, who's going second, who's going third, the quarterbacks. There will be a fourth quarterback in there soon, but right now it's just the top three. I want to see what order are they running in this morning.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we're going to have to piece together. And we talked about that yesterday on Buckeye Weekly, where we may not get to see any scrimmaging, but what we do get to see is who's repping first in whatever drill. And while we expect it to be CJ Stroud, Jack Miller, Kyle McCord, and maybe that wouldn't necessarily be news because that's the same as it was in the spring. But what kind of buzz do you think there would be if it's CJ Stroud, then Kyle McCord, and then Jack Miller, or anything different than what we saw in the spring? That would create certainly some news, and it would be a good way for Ryan Day to maybe throw a wrench into everybody's assumption this spring, this fall, because even if you put Kyle McCord number 2, now it looks like, oh, now he's gaining. Now he's, creating some sort of pressure on CJ Stroud, who, gosh, we thought he was going to be the starter, but now can he keep that upstart freshman away from him? That would be interesting on Day's part if he wanted to go ahead and, just mess with us a little bit.
I'm pretty sure they don't do stuff specifically to mess with us. Although when they always have the quarterbacks practicing on the absolute furthest point of the field, sometimes I do wonder. I don't think that's specifically the reason they do that, but you can't completely rule it out. But as you sort of mentioned there, what we see on Wednesday morning is just sort of one data point to start with. And then when we see them later in the week, when we see them next week, when we see them a couple weeks from now, we can kind of track who's moving up in the pecking order, who's moving down in the pecking order, maybe guys who have switched positions. You see a guy one day, hey, this corner is at safety. And then, 3 days later, oh, he's back at corner. It's sometimes you just see a guy at a different spot and you don't know, are they just trying him somewhere? Is this as consistent, a significant position move? So this is kind of the first data point that we can then compare stuff to. It's like the scientific method. We're basically scientists. I am super intrigued to see guys, who are playing the same position, who are likely going to be running very different spots in the line. If I'm guessing correctly, true freshman defensive ends, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, they both come in as 5 stars. They both come in as top 5 players in the entire nation. Sawyer had the whole spring. Tuimoloau just showed up a couple weeks ago. I'm expecting Sawyer to probably be closer to the front of the line than Tuimoloau, but I'm just really intrigued to see where they both are.
I kind of view it as a car race, and maybe Tuimoloau didn't have the times during the week to qualify for like the front of the line. So he's going to start in the back because, he had a bad week of racing, whereas Jack Sawyer, he had some good times in prep. And so I'll be interested to see, because I like you, I expect JT Tuimoloau to be towards the back of the line. And then as we get another data point in a week or so, how many cars has he passed since day one? And that will give us an idea of the speed that he's playing at. And that's going to be interesting to watch. And I think we will get an idea of that, even if we're just getting a little bit of a glimpse of practice. And you said the SIDs and their benevolence. If it was up to them, we would get to see everything. We know that. They're good people. It's the coaches that limit us. But I'm fascinated to see how quickly, because I think it's going to be tough. It'll be easier for him than Quinn Ewers, but how quickly can he pass Darian Henry-Young, Jacoby Cowan, not Jaden McKenzie, but Cormonte Hamilton, and then Jack Sawyer is he the number 5 guy? Can he move to the number 4 guy? Is he running with the 2s at any point? And has he passed anybody? So those are 2 fun ones to watch. Where you wonder if anybody can get into that top 4 just because they're seniors and they lead. So as we're trying to piece together stuff from drills rather than any scrimmaging, I don't know that anybody will maybe encroach into that top 4 that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't have any firm conclusions today. This is just sort of one data point to go off of, but it's, this is a very instructive base for us to start operating off of, because, you can ask coaches to put out a depth chart, or you can ask coaches, hey, if the season started today, and you don't get an answer. So this is how you end up sort of figuring this stuff out. And, this is sort of weird and bizarre, and but this is kind of how the sausage gets made when you have access to practice in this kind of way. So it's going to be interesting, really, really interesting to start kind of collecting that data today. The corners are really intriguing to me as well. You've got the true freshmen. You got Jordan Hancock, J.K. Johnson, Andre Turrentine. None of them were in for the spring. So this is a first impression for all of those guys. And then you've also got the second-year guys, Ryan Watts, who I think has kind of flashed at times. He might be, of the 6 guys I'm going to talk about, probably the furthest up the list in my mind right now. But you also got Legend Cavazos, who had some injury issues last year. You got Cam Martinez, who was kind of really just learning the position last year. What are you looking to see from those guys? Are there any of them that really are intriguing to you today?
Well, and I wonder if we'll get to see the corners and the safeties working out separately, because that's when you get to find out, this guy, because I remember Jordan Fuller, his first freshman practice, he was at corner, and then the next practice, he was at safety. And same 2011, I think Christian Bryant came in as one of the top corners in the nation, and he was practicing with the safeties right away. That's where you're like, hey, now there's another data point. We just figured something out. And I hope maybe they would get separated. That way we can have an idea of who exactly is where, at least on day one. And there's a lot of guys there. I mean, if they're all together, that's a pretty crowded group. So, I hope they are separate. I think they probably will be, but the corners, I want to see how is Denzel Burke ahead of Jordan Hancock and Ja'Kalen Johnson, and I assume they will be. I'm also interested to see, is everybody healthy? And is there a blue jersey or a green jersey or an orange jersey on any of these guys? Because, it's a very important position, and there are a ton of questions, and you want this to be as ideal of a camp as possible for every member of this secondary. And you need all of them to figure out your best 5, 6, 7 guys. And, I'd love to see Cam Brown out there with the ones, because that tells me he's healthy. But will he, we'll see. Obviously we'll see. And then again, will we? He'll be out there because we've seen him running and jogging before in the spring. So we expect him to do all of the drills. But if there's is he ready for physical contact yet? And they're not really doing much of that right now. And, Ryan Watts is right there as well. Yeah, there's a number of guys that I'm interested to see. first and foremost, I just want to see who is where.
Yeah. And, we just mentioned, including Denzel Burke, 7 different guys who are first or second year guys who are corners. You don't necessarily need 7 of those guys to be stepping up and being ready to play this year. But if you had like 2 or 3, that would go a long way towards, providing some depth, a little insurance behind Cam Brown. I mean, all indications are Cam Brown should be good to go as of today, but we'll see we'll see it when we see it. And yeah, if they can just get a few of those guys to kind of step up and be ready to at least be kind of rotation players there by the start of the year, that would go a long, long, long way to solving what is probably the biggest question mark for this year's team. Those corners are going to be going up against a, let's just say it is the most talented wide receiver, unit in the country. It might be the most talented wide receiver unit in the history of college football. I mean, it is just insane. About Chris Olave, about Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Julian Fleming, you know all those guys. You've also got the 3 freshman wide receivers, Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jaden Ballard. They were all in for spring. We learned yesterday they're all roommates with Kyle McCord as well. So there's a fun story that we'll get to beat into the ground for the next 12 months or so. But, a couple of those guys really popped in the spring. So I'm going to be interested to see where Marvin Harrison Jr. and Egbuka, and to a lesser extent Ballard, but I mean especially Harrison, like where are they running? Are they in that top 6 already?
Yeah, and you mentioned like 7 guys, so a few of them have to be in that top 6, right? Like based on math alone, and how far along is Cameron Babb in his recovery from an injury, and where is he in that mix? But yeah, is it like we can just go ahead and pencil in I assume it's Emeka Egbuka behind Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Marvin Harrison behind Garrett Wilson, Julian Fleming behind Chris Olave. But Tom, how often when we sit here, we talk, we've planned this out, we know what we expect. How often are we like, oh, I never, like somebody else is like Garrett Wilson was at X as a freshman, like, oh, I never really considered that because that's not. And so this is something that we are routinely made foolish by coaches at times, not all the time. Some of the times when we try to take guesses, but these are educated guesses. That's where everybody was in the spring. So,
I mean, it sounds like coaches are playing players out of position. So that's really on them more than us, if you ask me. But yeah, I mean, you're right. This is kind of one of the natural fallouts from Brian Hartline and his recruiting philosophy, which is you're not trying to get the 6'5" X anymore. You're not trying to get the 5'9" little water bug slot guys. They want guys who can just kind of play inside, play outside, be flexible, give them a lot of options, which then means sometimes guys go from inside to outside, and sometimes vice versa. Like this is a bug, not a feature in the Ohio State wide receiver recruiting room, recruiting philosophy and the Ohio State wide receiver room. And, it's working out pretty darn well so far. Another room that is just loaded with young talent is the running backs. You know about Master Teague, about Mayan Williams, TreVeyon Henderson. Where is TreVeyon Henderson in the pecking order right now? I mean, is he, Steel Chambers is probably still a running back, it sounds like. I mean, he had sort of talked about moving to a linebacker. There's been some thought about moving him to linebacker. It sounds like he's probably still at running back. That's something we can look for today. But where is TreVeyon Henderson? Is he ahead of Chambers? Is he ahead of Marcus Crowley? Is he ahead of Evan Pryor? I think by the time the season kicks off in, 4 weeks and 1 day, hooray, it's almost here. It seems like TreVeyon Henderson could be in line for some really early playing time based on all the stuff we're kind of hearing from behind the scenes. But, I'm just going to be intrigued to see where is he right now entering fall camp. And, is he already in that like 2-3 kind of spot on the, in the order, or does he have, the opportunity to maybe move up as the month moves along?
Well, and the other guy you have to keep in mind is Xavier Johnson, the walk-on, who's a senior, who's been around forever. And in the spring, there were many times where he was with the running first or second in these drills. And so you factor him in. So, but do you? I mean, he is a walk-on and he hasn't carried the ball. So you're not expecting him to take carries away from TreVeyon Henderson or Mayan Williams or Marcus Crowley. But if TreVeyon Henderson this morning is already ahead of, say, a Marcus Crowley and Steel Chambers, I mean, that's a move. That's pretty significant. And because I would expect the veterans, the returning guys, to all be ahead of him. And then it's similar to the JT Tuimoloau out thing. Like, okay, he's running fifth right now. Where is he in a week? Where is he in 2 weeks? Because I don't think anybody who pays attention to any of this in any amount of way expects TreVeyon Henderson to be running fifth in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And if he is, boy, howdy. You mentioned Ohio State having the most talented wide receiver room. They will have the most talented running back room if TreVeyon Henderson can't get carries here.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Marcus Crowley, you look at Steel Chambers, and it's like these are guys who are averaging like in the neighborhood of 8 yards a carry, and they might be fourth and fifth on the depth chart. I mean, this is an embarrassment of riches for Tony Alford and for Brian Hartland at wide receiver as well, and for Corey Dennison quarterback, and Greg Storro's got some pretty darn talented offensive linemen, and the defensive line unit is looking pretty deep and pretty strong for Larry Johnson. And I guess the questions are linebacker and defensive back more or less. And there are a lot of potential solutions there. It's not, they're not lacking for potential solutions in those rooms. It's just which of these guys is going to step up. And, I'm starting to think this might be a pretty decent football season for the local club team in Columbus, Ohio. It's starting to shape up that way. It's about time. The long suffering Ohio State fans may finally have a winner to root for. You never know. Crazier things have happened, but it could be an interesting fall in Columbus, and that interesting fall starts today with the opening of fall camp. We'll have Mark Givler and Tony and I will be at practice very, very early this morning. We'll have complete coverage at BuckeyeScoop.com. We'll have photos. We'll probably have some videos from practice. We'll have an instant reaction podcast on the Buckeye Weekly feed after the show, after we're done with an interview with Ryan Day after practice today. We're going to have a lot of coverage at BuckeyeScoop.com, and that will just continue all throughout the week, throughout the month. Hotel check-in day is coming. Yes, the best day of the year. Hotel check-in day coming very soon. We'll have coverage of that this week. There is so much going on, and it is all happening at BuckeyeScoop.com. So sign up today, get access to our incredible team of insiders, all of our great inside information. There's a lot going on, not just with the Buckeyes, but with conference realignment and all the various moving parts there. College football is changing quite a bit, and you can kind of get the inside track on what's going to happen next at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, do make sure you check out all of our great podcasts. I've plugged the Buckeye Weekly podcast a couple times already today. We are going to be more or less moving daily. It's not quite daily, but it's going to be pretty darn close to daily for this month as we sort of kick into football season mode. There is an awful lot to talk about with this team. You can find the Buckeye Weekly podcast and all of our great podcasts on whatever podcast platform you like. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find those. You can subscribe right there and also leave us a 5-star rating and review, which will help other folks find those shows. And finally, if you are watching on YouTube, at the end of this video, there's going to be a little thing that pops up that has another suggested video for you from our channel, and also has a little circle on the right-hand side with the Buckeye Scoop logo. Click on that one, that little logo, and you'll be subscribed to our YouTube channel. Then you get notified every time we go live with a new player or coach interview, every time we post new practice video, every time we post a new podcast. All of it, it's all free. YouTube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Just subscribe and you get notified every time we post a new video. And man, oh man, are we going to be posting some new videos this month. There is a lot of stuff coming. You have no idea. So that's all coming a little bit. All you've got to do is subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to BuckeyeScoop.com. Just have to do the same thing 3 times. Pretty easy if you ask me. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.